What we're going to do tonight is whip up a little serving tray out of cherry. You know, the kind that your wife brings you breakfast in bed all the time, every Saturday. Oh, wait. No, that did happen to me, I have to say, didn't it? We did that.
You forgot?
Yeah. The first few years, was it the first few weeks? The honeymoon's over. No, actually, it's been pure bliss all the way along. No, but this serving tray is not going to be limited to serving in bed. It doesn't have any legs, so. But it's nice to be on your lap. I have one similar, but not as nice as this one's going to be, so I'm looking forward to working that one out. But it's great to sit on the couch or in your favorite chair and just nod off after you gorge yourself on your favorite dinner. So let's get to it, huh? So I've got the pieces out here, and I made a few templates to get started. A little handhold template, and also this one combines with the handhold to give it a little bit of a drop down. So on the ends, we're going to have handles that are a little bit higher than the front and the back. So you're going to hold it on the sides like that. So the ends are going to be 14 inches long, like that. And the length, arbitrarily, it's not really arbitrarily, I measured the one I have that I kind of like, is going to be 20. You can vary that a little bit if it doesn't work for you, whatever. So I went ahead and milled out the pieces. I'm going to make this out of cherry, and I've got my two pieces of 7/16 thick, and these are just a little over 1 5/8 inches high by 20. And then the ends are, I went up to 2 1/8, so it drops down. And now I already made a rip cut. You can see how I outlined where that handle is going to be. And there's my handhold. So I made a little rip cut already just to when I was ripping these, so it's already to the proper size. This will be bandsawn after we get our joinery cut and all that. The first thing I have to do, though, is, well, I'll do this after I marking gauge them. I'm going to cut these little extensions off so they're not in the way in a few minutes. But this is it. So we've got our two ends, and then we've got our panel for the base, which I already made. So let's just kind of lay it out and get an eyeball on how it's going to be. And you can pick whichever you want to be the nicest side out. They all look good. I've got a little pitchy pockets there. I don't mind those really. And on the ends, these look good. Now, to get this material, I should mention, I had a thick piece of cherry that was plain sawn, and it was pretty wide. So what I did was, I thought this would be nice to have everything really stable and stay flat and true after I dress it to thickness. So the best way of doing that is to ensure that you have quarter-sawn material. That's where the grain runs perpendicular to the flat surface you have here. So it's running dead perpendicular. It was easy to make because I had this big thick piece that the grain was running, the growth rings were running parallel with the surface. It was plain sawn, and I just flattened one side and jointed an edge, and I ripped them through. I'm making a video edited down that kind of shows this process. I included that in the video. So if you zoom in here, the grain, you can see it's crossing side to side. So that creates a very linear figure on the front. See how tight those growth rings are? And it's linear. And you get a nice consistency of color and appearance throughout all four pieces. So I'm not going to worry about tracking the grain or anything because I know it's going to match up nicely. It all came from one plank. So that's a good way to get your stock out. If you're going to make something thin like this, you really don't want to buy 4/4 like thick stock and plane away over half of it to get your little sides. It's better with these thin sides to buy thicker material, plain sawn, and then resaw it so you end up with nice thin quarter sawn sides. That gives you a nice, strong, clean look. Let me go back to this. When we got our dovetail, our through dovetail, we have a choice of how we want to orient the through dovetail. Do we want that nice appealing look? See, when the pins come through like that, that's that beautiful classic look. On the other side of the through dovetail, it's kind of blah, kind of boring. It's just a big block of end grain here, of the tails, and then just the tiny show of the pins. So I prefer, in a case like this, to put the dovetails where they're going to be seen and enjoyed the most. I'm sorry, the pins, the ends of the pins, like that. So I'm going to put my tails here so that my pins will go through front to back, and you will see them, okay? So this is going to be one end. I'm going to treat each end as if it's a drawer front. So I'm going to have those pins coming out so you see them over here. And it's as if each of these lower, the front and the back, are like drawer sides. So it'll have that same appearance. When you pull open a drawer, you'll see the pins here. So if this is a drawer front, this is going to be my front. Obviously, this is the top here. And I'm going to mark this one with a 1. Okay, that's a little 1. And then this end, if you didn't have a top, let's see, I'll put the nicest look out front. And this one I'm going to mark with a Roman numeral 2. Okay, so there we go, 1 and 2. Now, I'm going to go ahead and mark my ends here. So I have to keep these oriented right because they all look so similar. So I'm going to put a scribble there, and I'll put a scribble here. And at this end, that scribble, you see it's oriented up, it's facing out, and it's for the 2. So I'm going to put a 2 right here. And this is for the 1 down here. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, where I scribble here. Oops, sorry. I'm getting confused on that one. I want to scribble at each end. And this is going to be the 2 at this end because this is facing out. And this will be the 1. So it's really important to mark them out. You could do that with pencil too. I'm doing chalk so you can see it. Now I know they can only go one way. I could shuffle these all up, and I know I could put them right back the same way because the markings are all on the outside. The horizontal line is facing up, and the numbers have to match with the number in the corner. All right, so once I've got that done, I'm going to set the ends aside, and I'm going to start with my tails. So I'll do my tails on the front and back, and then the pins will come through. I'm just going to do one end, like last week, but it's pretty simple if you do them all, if you do both sides at once, because you can saw right through and you only have to mark one face. Now, I should keep this for a second because I want to take my marking gauge, and just like last week, I set the marking gauge so that pin just overextends that cherry. So it's just pushing over. That's going to give me a slightly longer pin, and I can shave it off at the end. All right, so I've got it set. I'm going to use the block on the end grain and score right across. Again. Flip. Nice light score. You don't try to kill it. It's better to do 2 light ones than trying to get one really hard. Now, once I've got that, I need the mark on the top and bottom of these. So I just use the block to get them flush and then score right on across. I can feel it's flush. score right on across. Same thing at the other end. Oops. See that? Good. See that in the light?
Actually, the light is
not working?
No, it's
okay.
Glaring.
And then it's really important that you think about the block just feeling flat. If you have the round type, it's the same thing. You just use that round disc. You want to feel that flat too. So I want to make sure that feels good, and then I'll score right on across. Flip. Good and flush. Right on across. Okay, that's that. Now I can do my ends. This I just need to go on one side because they don't get cut at the top. Flip. Okay. That's it. Nice slices. Okay, so now we can start with our end piece here. And just like last week, I'll do it right here so you can see it. We're going to have 2 half pins this time. I'm just going to make those about, I don't know, a quarter, a little over. And I'll turn. Pretty dark right there. See that?
It's okay.
Okay. Then if I find the center, now I could measure this, but I'm going to eyeball the center. We don't really care if that's, I think that is pretty close. And then I'm going to use a different chisel this time than last time. I'm going to use this one that I ground actually specifically for dovetails. Look at this. It's a Master Mechanic. It's a good old chisel actually, but this I ground, and quite often I'll use this. Look at that. I ground a 1/2 inch down to, it's about 5/16, touch more, because I like the bottom of my inside of the tails, between the tails, to be 3/8 of an inch. So this fits in there really nice in one chop. So I could use this alone, just set it so it's about split there, and I'm going to go a little outside of each side, and that should be 3/8. Now I know I want these to be tails, so the lines are going to be something like this. I'll do this so I don't get confused. Okay. Now I'm going to grab the dovetail jig here, or marking jig, and I'm going to use that 1/5 slope again. I'm going to come over here first and put it on this line. I'm going to slide over. I can put my pencil right on there, slide over, and I want to follow that guideline I made there. I'll slide it back, get this guy right here, and same thing right on the end. Now I'm going to make sure I scribble on what I'm getting rid of. So I want to be left with the tails. Now because we have cherry this time on both pieces, it's easy to get confused and forget which side you're cutting. So scribbling your waist is more important than even when you're doing the drawer sides. So I would do that at both ends. I'm not going to bother both right now, but then I would flush them up, get them, I can feel that's perfect, and bring it around, and now I want to put it into the vise. So you can see that right in there, and I'm going to square that. I just like to have it plumb in the vise. And now we can make our little pencil lines that go across, right? This is key to getting accurately fitting dovetails. So when I hand saw, I want to make absolutely certain I'm 90 degrees across the top here. Whoops, that didn't go in the right spot. At first, you just want to use pencil because you're you're just setting the shape initially. So I can put my pencil there and bring the square up to it and get a better accurate. Last one, I don't think you can see this one, but bring it up. There we go. Now I'm going to even scribble here. I want to take, I'm sawing away this scribbled area there. All right, so I'm going to stand right here, and the camera lady's doing her thing. I'm going to draw back, get a little notch started, and then I'm going to drop it in right across, just like last time. Nice and light. Doesn't want to, there we go. Just let it drop right on across. This is like challenging. It's almost like I'm handicapping myself without light tonight. The overhead light went out, and here we are. Can you see it with the camera?
Yep.
All right, now I'm going to cross over and do the other side.
That's cool. You're doing the two at the same time. That's interesting.
Yeah, when you sandwich them together like this, because it's so thin material, it's only 7/16, so it's easier for the saw to go off track when you're dropping across if you're only 7/16. But now I'm 7/8, so it's tracking better as I lay it down. I know it's going to be more clearly 90 across the top here. Then I know I won't be fussing with these at all. All right, so there you go. Nicely sawn 90, and I've got my angle set. So let's get the coping saw and get rid of that middle one. Turn it hard. I'll turn around. That's it. And we'll turn it up, keep them right tight together. And I want to get my square on the end here so I can see. Nice and plumb. Now I'll use the saw to cut right across that knife line. I don't know if you can see that, can you?
We'll get there.
Wait a second. I gotta adjust it. It slipped a little bit. There it is. Okay, looks good. All right. Can you? Probably hard to see it, right?
It's okay.
You can always put a little pencil in there, but I'm starting right on the knife line here, and I just want to go light here and get it started because I'm cutting across with actually a rip saw tooth. Now I'm going to let it drop in. And straight down. Then while it's still there, we're going to chop it clean with the 1-inch chisel. And just clean that out right into the corner there nicely. There. I'll flip, we'll do the same thing. And this is nice because you would do all 4 ends kind of in rapid succession. So the repetition helps the accuracy. Let me see, it wants to slip. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to turn back and we're going to do the same thing. Take it back. Just look at those teeth. Just touch the knife line.
I had a sensation I was watching a cooking show for a second there,
Oh, really?
the way you were talking.
It's delicious.
Just look at that.
Okay. And then we'll clean it up again. Take advantage of the way it's sitting there right in front of you to get a beautiful, crisp inside corner with the chisel. You don't want to saw all the way. And that's that. Now you've got the two ends are beautifully cut, but that middle has to be chopped out. And I'll just do one side here so we can quickly chop the other. So now I want to cut along this back line here, and you can see there's that knife line. That gives us a beautiful little pocket to set the chisel, and then I can feel it in there. And now it's good and tight. I'm just going to chop down halfway. Okay, so crisp on the knife line. Flip it over. And the same thing here. This chisel is just about maxing it out. But it's okay. I know I'm on the inside right here, so if I bruise it a little, it doesn't matter as much. Okay. All right, so let's clean that off. Just got to get the residue out of there. And this is where you want to clean into the corners a little bit. Make sure it's crisp and clean down into the corners, sort of like we did with that 1-inch chisel on the others. See where my chisel was just slightly off the knife line. I did that for you again, so you wouldn't be intimidated. All right, there we go. So I do that with all 4 ends, and I would have these 2 little teeth just like that. All right, so once we have the teeth on one end, right, then we're ready, we've got them all, we're ready to knife that shape into the end grain of our sides. So I've got this. The way we set this up, I know this has to be the correct one because that's my 2, and this has to go onto this corner. So I want to see the chalk mark and the 2 in the same orientation, just like that. So with that in mind, I'm going to bring it over and drop it down into the vise. I just want to lightly snug, and I'm going to bring this down to the height of my thickness of the piece, so it gets it off the table a little bit. So see, it's not super critical, it's just that gets it up in the air. And then I'm going to come over this way, and now I'm going to hold it on there, and I can chop that out. So let's go ahead and mark this. I'm going to just hold the square right across the front and bring that up and bring it down against the square, and then bring it down so I see it's just about right there. Now I'll take my marking knife and go ahead and mark them. Man, this is reminding me of the old North Carolina days at night when it was sometimes too dark to see, but there we go. Okay, that's close enough. Now, before I get carried away, I want to remember this time I'm sawing out this material. And here I want to just bring it straight up. Sorry, I'm going to hit the camera. And stay right there. And then I'm going to plumb this up in the vise. And rather than draw guidelines down, it's so short this is where you get used to cutting straight. So you just need to set the teeth right so they just touch the knife line right here. And then we'll go again. If you miss the knife line, make sure you miss to the waist side, because you can easily push a chisel into that. Right. Okay, straight, plumb down. Then the same here. That's that. Now I get my coping saw, get that out of there. You're starting to see the pattern now. Come back, get the other side.
I'd be curious to hear from everybody out there if anybody has practiced their dovetails this week.
Maybe. I'm going to cut this off really quick. I guess I could do it right here. Just going to go to the bandsaw, but I got my saw right here. Okay, now I'm going to chop these out. And we will chop these out. So I'm going to just come away from the knife line a little bit. Sorry, I know you lost that.
That's okay.
Come away from the knife line. So you leave just about a 30-second before you make your final shot. I'm going to go, I didn't want to go all the way through there. Just going halfway. Now I go right to the knife line here. Okay. Flip. And here we go. We're just going to come away. Get this out. Again to the knife line. The knife line is your friend. Okay. Okay, now I'm just going to clean out the bottoms of those. Get right into the corners there. That little bit of debris that's in there, you see that? So just clean that up. Make sure that the bottom, this end grain, is either parallel with the two sides or below, so it doesn't stop you from seating the dovetail all the way up.
Cool, you guys keep working. It's awesome. Just writing down.
All right, so that looks good. So that's it in a nutshell. Check on the end. This one I just left a touch of the knife line, so I'm just going to like that. That looks good. I think we're ready to try it. So with just 3 like this, it should fit pretty easily. So I'm going to take the 2. This is where we made our joint. I'm going to put this down on the table. And now I'm going to plug it right down and in. Put it there. And then press it in. There you go. Not the best I've ever done, but it's not bad. I was kind of in a hurry. Look at that. That's kind of sloppy. That's a little angled at the bottom there, and that's a little open. But the nice thing that you do get that healing factor with the glue. But I went ahead and I cut one earlier. You'll see that they're all a little nicer than that. And I wasn't trying any harder. I just wasn't hurrying, I guess. So you go ahead and get all four corners like that. And then it came time for shaping up the top. So to do that, I would just bandsaw that out. I've got it marked on each side here. To get that rounded side there. And now come this side. It's not much with the spoke shave, but it's a nice way to blend it so that there's no bump. You have a really nice transition. That feels good. Then in here, I've got a rounded spoke shave, or you could just quickly rasp that with a Nicholson rasp. And I'll do that right here. This is a number 50. This is just to smooth it and get rid of those bandsaw marks. Then you go to a finer file, just like sandpaper really, except you're using files, finer cuts. I just want a nice transition here. You don't have to go too crazy. So once you've got that, then you've got to get this hole out of there. And I'm going to show you a quick way that I set that up. I'm going to make a center line here. I could try, I could drill a hole and scroll saw it out, but I'm going to use a drill to drill out. I'll go to the drill press for a second and use a 5/8 bit, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to use our template and route it clean. That'll be a quick way of doing it. All right, so once I've got that drilled out, now I can use my little template. I'm going to use a backer board here. And all I have to do is line it up with both ends and get it nice and flush. And take a couple quick clamps here. I'm going to throw them on right like this.
I'm commenting about the noise of the drill press as well.
It's awful.
I should have turned it down. Sorry, everybody.
Sounds like it's rattling. I mean, that's new, practically. It was new for the classic woodworking.
Cecil's saying you need a segmented belt.
Yeah, I have that material. I should. I think it's got 2 belts in there. Oh, actually, my consultant for my machinery,
I haven't seen him
the
on
wizard,
here tonight.
He's not on there? Well, anyway, Peter knows who he is. He he looked at it, but I can't remember how. I don't think we diagnosed anything obvious.
Wally says try link belts on your drill press instead of solid rubber belts.
Yeah. All right, so what I did was I set up the router. We did this not long ago where we have the collar, and we've got a bit in there that allows for an 16th inch offset between the bit and the outside of the collar. So my template here is a 16th inch larger all around. So it's overall, it's an 1/8 inch wider. So I wanted a handhold grip that's a little over 3/4. So that's a little over 7/8 wide. Here we go. It's going to plunge and take it out. This way. Rub the little light on. All right, gave us a nice clean handhold, and it's centered perfectly because that template is centered. So now all we want to do is round this off a little bit. Let me show you how to do that. I've got another router set up. I'll just put it in the vise. And it's got a 1/4 inch round over in there. And I'm only going to use a small portion of that. I don't want to do the full 1/4. I couldn't really because I've only got 7/16. I don't want a super strong round over, but something you'll see. So go ahead and start her up. Okay, so I was able to run it all the way out on the outside, but not on the inside because I want that to meet more tightly where the other side comes in. And on the other end, I didn't go all the way because I want to cut that joint first, and I still have this set up. Now it's almost all the way across. I would just clean that up. You could clean it up with a little more filing and then sanding, and you have a nice soft little round over there. And once I get the inside quickly rounded, it feels great. It's just right for 4 fingers in your hand. So this is 3 5/8, and this way it's a little over 3/4. So it feels good. And that'll be my end. Now, what about getting the bottom in there? Well, the bottom is a 32nd larger than 1/8 of an inch. And that we're going to put in a little groove all along the inside edge. And here's where it gets a little tricky. If I ran that groove all the way out, I'd actually would remove a touch of my pin, and I'd have a hole there. And then if I ran it all the way out on the other end, so here's my other one I just cut. If I ran it all the way out, it would exit through the end of that pin, and you have a hole there. We don't want to see holes at the end. So what we have to do is use a stop system, a stop groove. And to do that, I set up the router table with a wing cutter. A wing cutter, you can't really see it that well because it's in the table, but it's similar to this. So this is just like a little wing cutter. This is a 1/4 inch, I think. But what I've got in there is just the right thickness for our panel. So I'm going to set that back. And let's just go. I'm just going to cut a little of this so you can see. To know where to stop and start, you have to set it up so that you can feel it again and see where. I actually took a test piece and went to the end and then flipped it up and saw where the groove stopped. And then I adjusted where I wanted it to stop, and I made a little pencil line that shows me where the end of the workpiece is going to be when I want to stop. It doesn't have to be perfectly, because you're going to chisel out a little bit after. And then I would come to the other end, and I've got a little pencil mark here that shows me when that end aligns, I want to stop. If I go further, I'm going to be leaving about a 1/4 inch almost of material there. So I don't want to go much further or I'll blow right out the end. So I'm going to use another piece to sandwich together with it because it's kind of wobbly by one. But when I put two together and squeeze them together, now it feels more firm on the table. And I'll show you, I'll just do that end and then we'll stop somewhere in here. Because you want to do these all after your dovetails are done. So here we go. So you can see right there how I'm just a little beyond. So my panel going in here is going to be oversized by almost 3/16 each end. So I'm going to chop, I would chop that out with a chisel. And I've got a nice thin chisel here, one that I ground. So here's an old Marples, and it was a 1/4 inch chisel, but I ground it thinner. So it's about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a touch more. So you can go, I mean, you can buy an 1/8 of an inch chisel, but if you got an old one like this, so I use it so infrequently, and it's got a beautifully honed edge on there, so it works great. So for something like this, I would just set it right there. You got to be careful because this grain is pretty thin, and I'm going to just tap it. I want to square this off at the end a little bit, and I can come in here and just pare some of that material out with a wing cutter rounded upward. It's just fitting barely in that groove. There we go. I can make sure I've got it chopped clean to the end. Yeah, that's good. So we've got a nice cleaned out slot. And once I do that on all the pieces, I'll have enough room for that panel to slide right in there. So let's check that out. I'm going to show you the one I did earlier. So once everything's sanded and you're ready to glue up, you'd be organized. I'd have all this rounded and I'd probably clean that up before. And this will all get final sanded. Went through the drum sander at like 120, so it's got a little more. Now I'm going to find all my marks. They're kind of worn away, but that's my one end. And here's my two end. And here's my sides. I've got my one and so this is the one end. So this is like this. And that's the one there. And then this is the two. So this has to go down here where I have two. Now here's what got interesting. I actually made a mistake on this not a catastrophic mistake, but not one that I could fix because it was late enough in the day. So what I did was I planned for this tray to be 20 inches long, like I said, and 14 inches wide, which is the dimensions of these pieces. But when I cut these pieces earlier, I don't know what I was thinking, but I cut it so these are 22 inches long. So this is for a more formal place setting. But the problem is that the panels that I put in my raw rocket to make my own cherry plywood were only oversized enough to make it into the 20-inch long, so it won't reach all the way to the end. But I'm going to put it in there anyway so you can see how it does fit, and we'll have a little overflow end for you to see. So here's how you would assemble it. I would go ahead and put this end down, take this end and plug it right in. You know, you get a little glue on all those. And I probably put a little glue in the groove too, because once that sets up, this thing is going to be super rigid. So then my panel comes in, and notice how it doesn't exactly fit. But it looks good. It fits in the groove beautifully. And then, so I'm just going to use this panel actually on that one. And I've got to make another one just a little longer.
This is a little humbling night for you, isn't it?
I did all this on purpose. It is. I was a little scattered today. I started maybe too late. But then you want to line that up. Looks sweet, huh? When you get all that rounded over. And the tops of these fronts and backs will also get the radius on that router setup. And once everything's nicely routed, let's put a little denatured alcohol on there and see what the corners are going to look like. So here's the one, and
stretcher.
When we get this glued up, it'll look beautiful. You get those nice little dovetails at the end. Let's see what they look like down this end. And that dark end grain will pop right on through, even though it's both cherry. On this end, you're going to have more of the straight line look. So that's the look we're going to have. That's going to be like almost like a shaker, like a super clean looking. You can make the dovetails thinner if you like, but that's just a nice chunky little pin in there and 2 half pins. But that's how it'll look. And this is actually a nice size. When I made it, I was like, that doesn't feel long. I mean, you know, you'd have your plate here, your beans here, your drink there, your biscuit. So that's our tray. So I thank you so much for showing up and being here with me and going through this journey together as we just become better craftspeople to make beautiful works of art together.